But do you have a favorite translation? Not simply ours, but of the many. Is there a favorite of yours that lives in your heart, or
that I did?
Yeah, of your own.
Well, you know, I'll answer again with a Borgesian answer.
Okay.
When Borges was asked at Northwestern, we went there together by a very obviously enthusiastic, naive, young undergraduate, Mr. Borges. Oh, just call me Borges. Borges. In your long life, you must have had some muse. You must have had some woman who inspired you, who kept you going when everything. He says, yes, I know exactly what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But curiously, she kept changing her name. So if I could answer what my favorite is, I can tell you they're Wang Wei, the Chinese Buddhist, Taoist monk poet, maybe the greatest of all the Chinese poets. New England did that book, Poems of Wang Wei, which I did with my son Tony and one of my Chinese students from Beijing. And Poems of John of the Cross, Sappho, Rilke, Machado. I guess those are the ones I've all done rather large books on and written about. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Well,
so you've done a lot of them.
I've done a few, yeah. But speaking of Borges,
yes.
It would be nice to have you say something about him. You just told us a wonderful story about his dream.
Yes.
Maybe you could just tell that story or something else. I mean, you must have a million about him.
Well, one of my favorites is when we were in his rooms, I should say, across the street from where I was living on La Calle Paraguay. He lived on Maipú. It changed names at that point. Catty corner. And don't remember when I was going to walk him over to the newspaper. He always published his new poems with the local major press. I mean, not press, but the newspaper. Mm. They had that tradition, like the New York Times used to do that, you know, in their Arts Weekly once a week. And I'd walk him over, and he'd say, you know, banter about, do you think I'm worthy of you this time, or will I fail again? And, you know, and they say, well, we'll take a hard look and let you know, and so forth. And on the way back, everybody would say, Borges, you're immortal. And he'd say, don't be such a pessimist. And I mean, he had a name for anything you had to say to him. So we get to his place, and he's jiggling for the keys, and he knew them all, but he didn't have many mechanical abilities. But we got in, and the elevator wasn't working. Well, he said that always happens in Buenos Aires. Only when they're out of order do they work. Which said that in Spanish. Only solo cuando están descompuestos funcionan. You understand? So anyway, we're there, and no lights. Of course, he didn't mind. He was walking in the dark anyway. He was being blind. And we get to the top of the 7th floor. And I say, Borges, you're a monster. You're not even out of breath. And I'm there with his later wife, who's also, I'm 47, he's 80, and she's maybe 8 or 9 years younger than I am, or was then. I guess she still is. And he said, oh, Barnstone, I'm afraid I've gone beyond the age of panting.
That's great. Well, another one more question. I just about the future. I know you've recently taken on the entire New Testament. Not that recently, but you know, fairly recently. And I wonder.
Only for 20 years, but
what are you?
You know, do other things during the time.
Do other things in the meantime. But what are you? What's next? I mean, are you? Do you have some project in mind next?
Well, one of the things I have two major things I'd like to do is I write so much, and that I'm afraid most of it is still now exists only electronically, whose very existence depends on a spark, not of deliverance, but maybe destruction. So I want to put those in order. I'm publishing 2 books, new books of poetry in the spring. One of them I wrote 40 years ago, one of them I wrote 10 years ago. So I often do books that I've done a long time earlier. And sometimes they improve. I mean, they improve with age, or they get better, or I fix them up. But I want to not redo the original essays. My original book of the Poetics of Ecstasy was about 300 pages, and that came out in 1982, if I remember. And that's a long time ago. And all the essays I've written, which I published in various places, or sometimes long introductions, say to the Chicago book on Baudelaire, or Jorge Guillen, the Spanish poet, and I want to include. So it'll be now a monstrous book, 500 or 600 pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to include, for example, the essay at the end of the Gnostic Bible, which is the historical meditation on Gnosticism. For the Rilke book, I'd like to include the long study of Rilke.
Yeah.
I think those should be in print separately. So it'll be a wonderful book. It's mainly at the time. I'm always doing 2 books, or at least at a time. It's not so much correction of scanning and getting electronically in shape to send electronically to a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I think Harvard and Yale will do it as they did the last. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good compendium of interesting things that we can use. And thanks for talking to us on film.
Well, can I say, I hadn't thought this, but 3 cheers for Shambhala.
Hey, we'll include that for sure.
Even 4.
You're our inaugural interviewee, so this is auspicious, I think. Might be.
I'm sorry?
You're our inaugural interviewee. This is the first.
Really?
You're the first one, so it's maybe auspicious, or at least nice.
Good. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.